All right. Welcome back to the Movie Whale Marathon. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Mac.
Heck yeah. That one I did on purpose. And we are depending on so we didn't really plan this one out really well. I don't know if this is the end of the marathon or if we're going to put the new one at the end of this. At this point,
we should put the new one at the end.
Yeah. I didn't know if we were I didn't know if we were planning to do that still. At this point, the new one has been out for several weeks, and we have seen it. I just don't know if we are putting it at the end of this or not. Because by the time, in our time, it's still a month away. So, never know what's going to happen. We'll be in the middle of another marathon.
I feel like, yeah. I feel like, generally speaking, I will probably instinctively make references to what we talk about in this conversation about the new one when we have a conversation about the new one. Because I am hoping, fingers crossed, praying that the new one corrects all the errors I'm seeing.
Right.
So we should probably put this one first. If anyone is at all watching these in order, it would matter.
So if you can't tell, we're on Man of Steel. Directed by Zack Snyder. Came out June 14th, 2013. That's just a couple of days ago. Now here in 2025. This movie is over 10 years old. Starring, of course, the wonderful Henry Cavill, Diane Lane,
Henry Cavill,
Kevin
please
Costner.
know nothing I say is against you.
We'll get
you
there.
did fine.
There is a disclaimer. There's always the Cavill disclaimer. We'll get there. Russell Crowe, Ayelet Surer. Never said her name before. I just know her as Vanessa. Michael Shannon and Lawrence Fishburne and Christopher Melanie and then Henry Lennox. Those are like the big ones. And somehow, did I say Amy Adams? Because she's not in top billing on Google. Where the heck is she? Amy Adams. Amy Adams is in this movie for anyone who wants to
Also,
Google
Amy Adams, I love you. Please don't take this personally.
Right.
You did great.
She's down at the very bottom of this Google listing next to Linda Carter, who is not in this movie.
That's so weird because I was going to say she doesn't get very much screen time, but then I thought about she gets about as much screen time as Clark does.
She's Lois Lane. She's under Laura L, which, okay, anyway. Man of Steel. Quick disclaimer. Henry Cavill is perfect in all ways. As far as I know. I don't know of any other I don't know of any Cavill controversies at this time.
From what we know of right now.
From what we know of Henry Cavill at this time.
He seems to be a very wholesome, attractive nerd.
Wonderful nerd, yes. Wonderful casting. Wasted
Honestly, the casting was pretty good.
We'll talk about it.
Also kind of wasted.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, definitely wasted. I don't have anything against Amy Adams. I don't get why she's Lois Lane at all, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Other disclaimer. No, that's it. Cavill, you're fine. Nothing I say is against you. You did what you could with what was presented to you. There's some things about this movie that I genuinely like.
There are some things that actually do kind of work.
There's a couple of things that are cool.
It's just, they're like small little sparkles in largely what's just a mess.
Yeah. I would say something similar.
I think the small little arc we get with the Colonel, who is kind of a jerk to Lois and then kind of turns around. I kind of like his character.
It's so basic though.
It's basic, but they managed to actually do it. Okay, you know what? A Superman origin story or just a Superman movie in general should not be this hard to do. I'm getting kind of mad about it. Because we have all this precedent from Christopher Reeve and all these other movies, even Return of Superman, which are all fairly experimental. They're trying to figure out how to tell a story. By the time Man of Steel has come around, we know how to tell a superhero story, and we have a lot about Superman that's just in the common consciousness. And they take all that stuff and ruin it. Yeah. They take all the stuff that we know about Clark, about Kal-El, about Krypton, and they say, we're actually going to do something very different. And I don't totally hate creative choices. I just feel like this was a chance to really nail down, quote unquote, the canon of Superman. And instead of taking what was really good and polishing it up, they just kind of throw everything out and do whatever the hell they want to do. Mm-hmm. And the result is that the story doesn't feel... Sorry, what?
No. Finish that sentence.
Yeah. The result is that it doesn't really feel like a Superman story.
Right.
It feels like a General Zod story more than it feels like a Superman story.
Right. You keep saying they. You know who it is. Just say the name.
Yeah.
You know who it is.
I mean, he's not the only one making decisions.
Yeah, but he's the director. So he kind of makes the end decisions in many ways. This has his...
I don't know enough about Snyder to fully hate him, but this movie does not help him by any means.
There is second disclaimer. I did forget. I have nothing against Snyder personally. As a person, I really don't. I will always say as much. Because at the end of the day, when we all go to bed, we are talking about superhero movies, and it's
art. It's opinions.
It's art. It is opinion, and it doesn't matter. The level of anger I have doesn't actually matter, and it's not like real anger outside of nerd conversations. That being said, I am going to say some awful things about his artistic decisions. Just yeah. So anyway, yes.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not they. It's him. He's making these decisions because he is not a comic book fan. And he has his particular style that everything is filtered through. That works for some people, it doesn't for others. There's so many bizarre, weird, borderline, within the nerd world, disrespectful decisions made in making this movie. There are some that are cool, but they're the ones that are like surface level. They're like visual things that I think are kind of cool. Real quick,
yes.
I think we should get, because this is going to be a fun one to nitpick and to shit on. So I do want to talk about legitimate positives first, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
And not necessarily in order. First off, the soundtrack is great. Credit to Zimmer.
Yes.
The main theme, the flying theme, awesome. The suit, I'm 80-20 on. I think the suit is going to be one of those things that, just like the perception of superheroes, ebbs and flows more so than any other suit in the entire superhero world. No trunks, I think it's fine and it works. I'm just as excited for the new one with the trunks. I think this one works without the trunks. I like the new logo. I like the interpretation of the Kryptonian crests and their armor and their clothing, and all, that's all good and fine.
That was pretty cool. That was a good bit of world building.
Sure. The texture is cool. The deep blue and deep red is cool. But because of Snyder's disgusting blue filters, there's no yellow. I don't love that. I'm being negative. I'm sorry. The suit's cool.
No, actually, let's hate on the filters for a second. Everything in this film is so blue. They look like little blue people running around.
It's the worst bit is during the interrogation.
Off the filters, man.
The worst bit is in the interrogation room with Lois and Clark before he breaks the handcuffs.
Yeah, handcuffs.
It's so gross. It looks gross. Anyway, I like the suit. I like Cavill. I like the soundtrack. I like the special effects. The flying sequence is awesome. I like genuinely 95% the interpretation of a Kryptonian developing powers over time and it being more of a hindrance at first. I love mostly how the X-ray vision is not something that comes out of his eyes like in many cartoons and comics, but it's like his eyes just flipping to X-ray mode, and so he sees things in that way. At the same time, leave it to Snyder to take the simplest, calmest, softest power that Superman has and make it fucking terrifying. I get that it makes sense, but it's the way that we see it and the way it's interpreted. It's absolutely terrifying to see all these children's skulls. So I am mostly positive on that.
Yeah.
I like that the heat vision...
I think any version of Clark that doesn't have him... Well, if we're going to say that Clark is like born with powers and so he just grows up used to it, that's one thing. I guess I don't have too much of an issue with that. But if you're going to say that Clark like comes into his powers and he doesn't at any point have like a panic attack,
Right.
That's bad writing, because if you could just suddenly start seeing or hearing everything, you wouldn't know how to handle that consciously. So I do like the fact that they kind of add this element about, well, okay, I go back and forth. I kind of like the fact that coming into your power causes like an overwhelm, right? I think that makes perfect sense. And I also really like that as sort of like an inhibiting factor to Kryptonians who are not used to it. I don't like the fact that it's in the atmosphere, because Superman has those powers on other planets. So it has to be something that he either like kind of collects in radiation and stores in his body, or is something he can pick up elsewhere. And for Earth to be like a special planet that has extra nutritious environment, and that's what gives him the ability to see and hear everything. That's a problem, because that doesn't stand up within the canon of Superman, just in general.
I'm a little mixed on that. So if we're on this for a quick tangent, I like the idea of a planet having a nourishing atmosphere that contributes to his powers. He is fine in outer space. We see it multiple times. I don't fully buy that him being exposed to Krypton's atmosphere would then completely hinder his powers. The idea of kryptonite cutting through his power, and the idea of prolonged exposure to a red sun would dim his powers eventually to the point where he doesn't have them anymore. I'm all for that. Putting him in whatever god-awful atmosphere Krypton has, and that just cutting through them completely, I think that undercuts the kind of power he's like supposed to have. I don't know. So it's one of those things.
I also 100%. I think you can have what you're saying be true, and also 100% be on the whole. It was hard for you to breathe when you first got here because your lungs weren't used to it.
Sure.
Like, especially since we're going with powers developed through time, probably through puberty for this version of Clark Kent, then it makes perfect sense that he would have a hard time adjusting to Earth's atmosphere while breathing. But that wouldn't necessarily translate to him having a hard time instantly in a Kryptonian atmosphere, unless we wanted to go the kryptonite route. If we were going to say that there was some sort of Kryptonian radiation or some sort of element of kryptonite in the atmosphere organically, because I'm pretty sure kryptonite was not lethal to a regular Kryptonian, right? It's just lethal to Superman because of the unique combination of like planet exploded with a ton of radiation, he grew up on a different planet. Like, it's a unique Superman thing that might apply to some other Kryptonians, but largely it's unique to his situation. So if the other Kryptonians who grew up on Krypton were not allergic to the kryptonite in their atmosphere, but he was, that would explain it. But he grows used to it. So it's not kryptonite, because he can't like get used to kryptonite. He maybe can push through it, but he never just adapts to it. So there's it's an interesting mechanic to try and engage, but it doesn't respect a lot of the Superman canon, and that's a problem.
It's a classic Snyder thing in which I feel like it was thought about for maybe 20 seconds, and if you had given it a whole minute, it's probably not going to work. Because if you have a guy who can exist comfortably in zero atmosphere, nothing, no breathing at all, but then you put him in, an atmosphere with air, heavy air, and it just puts him through the ringer, that doesn't really make any sense.
A couple of coughs I would have accepted, but other than like fully collapsing, no.
And not just fully collapsing and fully being affected, but his powers are removed completely.
Right.
When I was a kid, I thought it made sense, but like the more I think about it, the older I get, it's like this isn't really, because like we don't see it, but like what happens to him if he's exposed to a yellow sun, but in the atmosphere of Krypton? That's another thing it seems that they subtly changed, is Krypton doesn't have a red sun anymore. They just have an older sun. Don't love that. Don't love that at all. But other positives, right? Because we're talking positives.
Positives, that's right. We were on the positives. I almost kind of like the Codex is inscribed in Cal.
I think it's fucking stupid. but I almost like why it's in the movie. We kind of referenced in our previous episodes how Jor-El realizes the planet's ending, and is like, out of spite, I'm not gonna help anyone. I'm just gonna watch you all die. So the opening sequence of Jor-El wanting to do something, I like in concept. But
plus, it's a
like
decent metaphor for like how a surviving member of a total destruction event might be able to revive in some adjusted way that culture. Like, it's very Avatar: Last Airbender, last of your kind, metaphoric.
Sure.
Like, do the people live on through you, or are you genuinely the last one? So I do kind of like that angle. I just feel like it's not in line with what I understand Kryptonian technology to be like. Like,
There's
for Kryptonian technology to move from crystals and like hard tech or like super advanced tech to like a weird mix of electronic and bioengineering is a weird world building choice that I probably want to hit on more later, but we are talking positives, right now.
Yes, we are. The action's fine. It's cool. It's cool to watch them fight. I guess technically Michael Shannon's performance as Zod is cool. I don't care really for Michael Shannon, and I don't really care for Zod, so I am biased. I can see where it is. It's very strong, though. Like, I understand why lots of people like it.
I think it works. It's just not what I would have picked for my introductory Superman villain. For a whole bunch of reasons that I could lay out.
Yeah.
That would just take us away from our topic right now. I like. Okay, my notes on the very end, if we kind of want to jump there, not any like, and this honestly doesn't really count as spoilers because one, Superman's not going to die in his first film, so it's not a spoiler that he lives, and the end has basically nothing to do with the rest of the story. So, spoiler-free review of the last few scenes. I love the drone bit where like there was a drone following Superman and he like crashes it down, totally destroying it in front of the general. Just close enough to be risky, but not close enough to actually do any damage. And he was like, you gotta trust me. You have to trust me. I'm not gonna be under your thumb. I'm never gonna be under your control. You also don't have the power to stop me, so you're just gonna have to trust me. I promise I'm gonna be good, but you're just gonna have to trust me. And I feel like it's a very Superman moment where he's like, you can't invade my privacy. You don't have any kind of authority over me. You just have to trust me. That's kind of where we are. And I loved that moment for him as a character. I felt like it was really kind of perfectly played off. But I didn't feel like it was connected to literally anything else in the film. It was like one of the best scenes, and it didn't have anything to do with the rest of the film.
Yeah, that's because it's a moment of levity, which you don't often find in Snyder's movies.
To have a Superman movie without levity that's so silly. That's so dumb, man.
Yeah, I mean, there's more in this than there is in Batman vs Superman, but still, there's a lot of weird decisions. I guess, again, on positives, the sequence of him saving the oil rig guys is amazing. Just because it's visually cool to watch.
I'm not happy about the character choices happening in that bit of the movie, but it is a good scene. Like, taken separately, I would think it would belong in a good film.
Sure. Little Clark does well, I think, as Little Sad Clark. He looks like Henry Cavill, so that's cool.
I liked that we got a fair amount of particularly Pa in this film, teaching Clark about things, but I did not like the way that they formatted this film is rather irritating. Like, I have a hard time. Okay, so I like the fact that we got a lot of Pa because a lot of the times we just sort of get like one life lesson from Pa and then he dies, and that's annoying. I don't like that at all. But the problem with the way that they did Pa in this one, even though it was good that we got more than one life lesson from Pa, we have a really dumb decision where he goes back to save a dog and dies, telling Clark not to save him, which is infuriating. Nothing about that is good. Then we'll come back to it. I'm sure we have more to say about that. And then also, I was recording it. We were an hour into the film, and we were still kind of in a prequel phase where we were just getting background information I think the idea about splitting up the background information was like to make it more relevant to the moment that was happening in present tense. But like, I gotta be honest, nothing that was happening in the present felt super important. All the stuff that was happening in the past felt more important than the stuff that was happening in the present for like half the film.
Because the movie is aimless until a certain point.
Yes.
That's an honest, genuine critique. Good segue. Let's get into it. There's no drive or goal until Zod shows up. And even then, it's still, Superman is not acting like Superman. Oh, it's his first day on the job. Whatever. Just stop for a second. Don't, just stop.
No.
Because
it's real dumb for Clark to be in his 30s and not Superman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Jor-El,
it's dumb.
Jor-El sent him to the planet with no plan, nothing. He had hopes and he had ambitions. I'm not saying you have to do the exact same thing as Donner and make a magical glowing crystal that's green that isn't kryptonite that can somehow connect to Clark's mind and blah, 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 blah. But like, as we've recently discussed, there are many cartoons, there are lots of comics in which this is a thing that has to be discussed and a thing that's explored. Clark doesn't find anything until he's in Canada because he left the oil rig scene because he had to go save those guys, and he heard two soldiers talking about a thing that was weird, and he was curious about it, so he goes to check it out. That's it. That's how he finds the one thing on this planet that Kryptonians left behind, which is strange. And then, of course, he's the only one that can access it. What if he didn't have heat vision? Like, Jor-El didn't know the extent of the powers he was going to have. It's just, I don't love that so much of Clark's life is aimless because there's like, and then
to me, the most encapsulating thing, like the way I kind of sum up my main issue with this film, is that when we get introduced to the character, we basically have a weird combination of Superman and Kal-El more than we have of Clark, which doesn't make any kind of sense because at this point, he doesn't know his Kryptonian heritage. And the Superman bit should come from him being Clark Kent. But really, what we get, character-wise, is we get a character that doesn't have any roots or connection to the world around him, which strike one against Clark Kent, because Clark Kent is very much a human. Not necessarily like biologically. He is a part of his communities. He is hometown country boy, he is news reporter, he is engaged in what's happening around him. He has a set of rules. And Superman almost always comes from Clark Kent's desire to do good and the lessons taught to him by Ma and Pa Kent. It is not something that he is necessarily inspired to do by Jor-El. He maybe just doesn't have like a name for it or like a full exception of it until he encounters Jor-El. So to have Clark be this sort of aimless guy just going around randomly doing good, to me it doesn't really work because Ma and Pa taught him better than that. Yeah. Ma and Pa taught him to have direction and purpose, and he's instead doing a sort of like weird, like Batman, what was the guy's name? Kyle McCandless sort of situation where he's just wandering the wilderness hoping for... it's dumb. Like, that's not the character. That's not the character.
And we had talked episode 1 of this marathon that 12 years of Fortress School was a little weird. It might have been better to have him travel the world and to experience it. But that's not what's happening here. He's like constantly on the run from no one, going nowhere, learning nothing. And the scene
in this canon, he spends the first decade. We'll say he does well in terms of like being a teenager. He does what he needs to do as a teenager through high school graduation. But I don't think this version of Clark went to college.
Yeah, they loosely imply he spent a decade just wandering around.
Yeah, he's just a hermit on Earth. And he makes no connections to anyone. And he just spends a lot of time saving people and getting angry at jerks.
And I don't know, gotta stop. Okay, so I was gonna go somewhere, but I can't yet because I will be mad and you'll be mad, or if you're not mad, I'll make you mad. The scene in the bar is, I think it perfectly encapsulates this movie and Snyder's style. He doesn't want the world to know who he is. can't, because it'll change everything. So when the mean guy, who's a foot shorter than him, throws beer in his face, instead of just removing him from the bar because he's a foot taller, he goes and destroys his truck. And somehow no one hears that, because that's way less suspicious, way less weird. Like, that makes no fucking sense. It's funny the first time you watch it, and then you think about it.
Not really petty like that.
That too. He's so like, angry and petty that he goes and destroys this truck.
Yes, and like in my mind, like, yeah, that's definitely going to hurt the guy one way or the other. But those trucks aren't always owned by the driver, and so like it's a very weird sideways petty way to get back at a guy where he could have just like, because like what he ends up doing is removing himself from the situation that is still kind of putting the girl in some form of jeopardy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, she still has to take care of that table.
Right.
He still spends time in the bar. So like the problem isn't solved. He just gets revenge.
That's all you have to do is throw him out. No one's gonna think this
and you don't have to reveal yourself to throw him out. Like, you can just say like, I've decided that you can no longer be here, and you can't stop me.
Right. Yeah. It's just it's so dumb. It was so dumb. We're almost halfway through this episode already, which is really concerning because there's so much to talk about.
I have so much to say.
There's so much to say. This might be a two-parter, guys. We need to spend some time real quick talking about Pa Kent, because on paper, when you say we're gonna have this many scenes and this much runtime that's dedicated to moments with Pa Kent, love that. This is the worst interpretation of Pa Kent. Every single message is awful. It's terrible. You could remove all of it and it would instantly make this movie better, a whole letter grade. Because the first real moment with Pa Kent is him telling him that maybe it would have been better if you let the kids die. That's terrible. Straight up. And if you want to say it's because he's acting out of fear to keep Clark safe, you're already the wrong person to be writing this movie about Superman. Straight up. Yeah. That's already wrong.
Like I was saying, Clark is the reason Superman exists, not Kal-El.
Yeah.
Like, obviously Kal-El and Jor-El, like Jor-El, every version of him or his consciousness that we get is proud of him and tells him to be Superman. But the reason that Clark is good is because of the Kents.
Yeah, not in this version.
In this version, they're like, Jonathan says, maybe don't be a hero for your own safety. And that's what causes the weird identity crisis for Clark through most of this film, because he like knows that he needs to do good things, but his father died because he believes so strongly that revealing that would be bad.
Was so insanely dumb on so many levels, because for one, the fact that they all forgot the dog, even though Martha was holding the dog, is dumb. The fact that Jonathan goes back for the dog instead of Clark is dumb, because you already know this kid is stronger and faster than you. Why wouldn't you let him do it? And then you stop him from going to help. What do you just like think it through real quick for a second, you know? Like, what do you think he's gonna do? What do you think everyone's gonna think? Oh my god, Brittany, did you see that day during the tornado? This like 18-year-old strapping young man who's probably an athlete ran really quick out to the street to save his dad. That is so fucking unbelievable. He must be a goddamn alien. He can't fly yet. We've never seen him use super speed, especially in his youth. Do you think he was gonna use his laser vision to take out the tornado? What did you think he was gonna do? It's so stupid. And like, the first movie.
Well, and let's talk about it as a parenting choice too, real quick. Because like, let's say Pa Kent was trying to be a good dad and protecting his son, and he felt like it was so important to protect the secret of his sons that he was willing to die for it. If you were going to put that in a situation where like maybe Pa was under some sort of weird interrogation for some reason to figure out where Superman was or to reveal a secret identity, that kind of works, because then it's just him protecting his kid, right? But this is a situation where all it would take to save his life is Clark making a decision to take a slight bit of risk in his identity. Among people who either don't know them because highway, or who kind of trust them because small town.
Right.
So instead of risking a little bit about your son's maybe kind of weirdness, you would let him sit with the guilt of knowing that he could have saved you for his entire life, but decided not to.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite in every single conceivable way of the first movie, and it completely removes the lesson. Pa Kent dies of a heart attack. Despite all of my powers, I couldn't save him. There's always going to be things that you can't do, even though you are Superman. Here comes Snyder with this stupid twister. It's a thing he easily could have done. He easily could have fixed, easily could have saved. There's not one good reason to have allowed that. And it's a meme now that people joke about, but like on a fundamental level, it's just illustrating how Snyder does not understand Superman. Never did. And if he did, he didn't care, and he just wanted to tell this different version of the story, which is, I would argue, in a court of law, quantifiably worse than a classic interpretation of Superman. It's so bad.
Maybe there's a world in which Pa says, son, you do not have to risk yourself for me. But there is no universe in where Clark Kent is actually okay with that and doesn't try.
Right, yeah, like...
Because of what Pa has taught him to do. The whole bus thing with, like, you should have just let the kids die, like... That's not what the Kents teach him.
That's insane.
The Kents teach him to put others before himself, and that is where the conflict lies, because they also teach him that what he is special, but needs to be hidden, because people will take advantage of it, or people will hunt him. And so, like, it's about walking the line between what is your responsibility as someone who can save people, and what do you need to do to keep yourself safe. That's where the whole secret identity comes from for Superman. And this one is just like, don't be a hero. And for some reason, Clark still grows up to be a hero.
Barely, because this conflict does continue into the next movie.
That's true. That's true.
And see, what I realized, and I think the way to sum this up, because that conversation on the truck about the kids, there's a little bit of a layer to it, in that, can you imagine being a parent or hearing a parent say, yeah, let that bus full of kids die? First of all, we didn't even talk about how stupid it is. Isn't it great how a bus is always in danger on a bridge? Always a bridge, only a bridge? Like, could you have not taken one more minute to think about a legitimate, like, threat? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Bus. A parent says, yeah, just go ahead, let them die. He goes on to elaborate that this is bigger than us, it's bigger than a group of kids. This will affect the world when they realize that you, a child, can lift a car. That's really going to shake up the whole world. But what this means is, whereas classic, typical Superman is operating under the hopes of a simple farm man, this Superman operates under the ignorant fears of a simple farm man. And that's what this is. That's what all of this is the fears and the pessimism of his father.
Oh my gosh.
And that's awful.
Dude, okay. So, segue, because this is connected. I don't think it was meant to be connected in the way that you just did connect it for me, but it's definitely connected. I was trying to understand this whole choices around the Kryptonian world, particularly in the way that they give aesthetics to Jor versus Zod. Because Jor-El is surrounded by a lot of natural things. He flies on a beast instead of a technological ship. He does bioengineering. He saves a early skull from like a bioengineered cave, right? They have a natural birth for Clark rather than bioengineering him like every Kryptonian is to have a fated life. Instead, Clark gets to make his own decisions, right? There's a whole lot, not enough to make a real strong case, but there's a whole lot of aligning the natural side of things with Jor and aligning sort of like the mechanical, technological side of things with Zod. It doesn't work out perfectly because apparently both Zod and Jor-El were against the council's decisions, but they took different directions. And that's going to get into a whole bit where, if we have time, I want to talk about Zod's motivations and how they don't totally make sense in this film.
Yeah.
But, but the movie, I felt like anytime they spent with Jor and Zod, particularly in the same scene, it was about sort of this natural versus technological argument. And it never quite landed for me because, one, that's what it is. It's to align it in that way is to align future technologies with abuses of power and fear of that technology. And Superman is not a story of fear of progress. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be idealistic and optimistic as we move into the future. The more abilities we unlock, hopefully, the more good we can do with those abilities. Mm-hmm. And the problem with the Kryptonian Council has always been that they weren't doing enough with their technology. Not that they were doing bad things, because I think the way that they align it here is it's trying to parallel with like fossil fuels and, you know, how we might be harming the planet. They're trying to do the same thing with Kryptonian Council. They keep moving the Kryptonian Council closer and closer to that explanation. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something wrong with the planet, and the Council refuses to do anything about it, even though there are scientists that have solutions to the problem that they're bringing before the Council. The Council's like, no, we're not going to do anything about that. So fundamentally, even in Kryptonian storylines, the problem is not that technology or progress is evil. The problem is that it's not being used ethically. Power is not being used ethically. Mm-hmm. And so for Jor to be aligned with natural elements, as if progress and technology is somehow an enemy and will make power-hungry generals, and to align Pa Kent with this weird idea that power and abilities will make you a target and therefore you should be afraid of them, it imbues the whole film with this general sense of like, we need to be afraid of everything that is different, mm-hmm. which is the opposite of a Superman story. Mm-hmm. The Superman story is supposed to be this man who is different has decided to become loyal and honest and true, and he's doing things that we could never imagine because he has these differences. He's good for us, and we do have to trust him. There's a little bit of like a tension in the trust, a little bit, you know, because like there is no fear without some risk, or right. Sorry, there is no trust without some risk. But the whole film comes at it from this angle of like anything new and powerful is bad and dangerous, whereas the Superman story is about how new and powerful can be a good thing if mm-hmm. we trust it to the hands of good people, or rather, if we as a collective group handle that power well. Like, what do we do? And it's supposed to be an optimistic story, and it feels like they maybe kind of tried to do that with this story, like, you know, because at the end, Superman basically has that scene. Like, well, they have that scene where he tells the general that he just has to trust him. Mm-hmm. But they don't stick the landing because so much of it is drowning in the fear mm-hmm. of this thing.
Yeah. And I can understand at first wanting to pursue a realistic take on Superman and the fear that might be present. It's way overdone, this idea. This mm-hmm. idea that, because it's also, you set it up where all of Pa Kent's motivations are coming from a place of, you're the answer to Are We Alone in the Universe? And when people learn of you, mm-hmm. it'll reshape everything. Except, no, it's not, because the government discovered that ship well without Clark. And we're gonna mm-hmm. get to it regardless of if Clark was there or not. Also, I know Pa doesn't know this, but Snyder did. General Swanwick, or whatever his name is. What's his name?
Mm-hmm. Swanwick, I think.
Yeah, that's Martian Manhunter. He was Martian Manhunter from the beginning. That wasn't something that changed later. He was always Martian Manhunter. There are storyboards from this movie that prove it. And there are little subtle, tiny little bitty hints that pointed out throughout the movie. Apparently he says Krypton at one point without anyone ever having told him, and it's supposed to be an example of him using his telepathy. And then
He's supposed to pick up on that in a film where the timelines are not consistent.
I know. And apparently, there is a little bit of interesting kind of when Superman stands up during the interrogation scene and he breaks the handcuffs and he walks towards the window. Everyone else moves backwards, and the general doesn't because he's the only one that's got like he could actually stand up to him. So
I mean, that, and he also fully is aware of the motivations of Superman if he is using telepathy, so he's not afraid.
Right. Yeah. It's a little frustrating that the message of this movie, the world they're trying to create, and the fear that they've instilled in Clark is unfounded. Because there's already a fucking alien in the military, and that's a whole other issue.
Let's go ahead and say, yeah, because no, if we're taking that to its next step, that means the person who is making the decision to trust Superman is someone who already has reason to trust supernatural.
So there's not even like an arc for humanity here. Like no one's learning anything. It's also really frustrating the fact that they did confirm that it's Martian Manhunter the whole time because so you were just gonna sit back and do Jack Diddley shit the whole time, weren't you, ass? Like that's so obnoxious. And there's also, I didn't really realize this until watching it this time and really paying attention. I understand that if you remove Superman from the equation, you don't really save the day. You also don't have the Earth in danger because of the whole, the ship summons Zod. But when that little Jenny intern's like, oh, Superman saved us. No, not really, because Superman didn't come up with a plan. Superman didn't learn about the technology. Superman didn't throw the ship at the thing. It's
not his movie.
No, like
it's not.
It's like a bunch of other people. Like he goes and fights a robot squid in the Indian Ocean and then flies up through the middle of the World Engine. That's all good and fine. Quick note, again, Krypton has this AI thing.
I want to jump on that.
It should have been Brainiac the whole time. It should have been Brainiac. Anyway, cool villain for the next movie. Anyway.
I cannot believe they disconnected. Like you just mentioned, he wants to go fight like a giant metal octopus in the Indian Ocean, then flies back to where Zod is launching his invasion. It is a very, very, very bad idea to separate Superman from the people when he's doing his big fight, unless he intentionally took the fight away from the people. Because the whole which he fails to do, by the way, but the whole point of Superman is that he protects the little people. So you have to have scenes where he's scooping up civilians and moving them to safety while he's fighting the big bad guy. And in this version, instead, they send him away while the humans fight the big bad guy. To be fair, I'm not sure that anybody else could have taken down that machine, but
I get that he's the only one that could get there in time, but still,
you could just get rid of that machine. It doesn't need to happen. They could just like launch it from their ship and he fights the ship while he's fighting Zod. You could do that. Anyway, so removing him from Metropolis is a problem. And then having him like decimate Metropolis is also a problem because he would be so aware of all the lives. This is not Invincible, right? This is not Invincible. This is Superman. So if he notices the city is getting wrecked, his first move is to get them out of the city, like to the point where he would pick up the ship and fly it to a different location. And we just don't get that at all. We don't get any sort of like, oh no, everything is destroyed from this version of Superman. We just get him fighting it out in this absolute ruin of Metropolis.
There's a lot of empty space in Kansas too, but we had to destroy that one street in Smallville.
I thought that was silly too. I was like, why would you run to the people in your conflict? Because that's essentially what happens. Superman decides the direction of that fight at the beginning, and he throws them into town.
And someone will argue it's stakes. It's to make there be stakes, and you can care about the people. No, it's not.
It's bad character writing. That's what it is.
It's dumb. It's just dumb. So God, running.
Do you think IHOP paid to be in the movie?
Sorry?
Do you think IHOP paid to be in the movie? IHOP? I think they paid to be in the movie. Probably. Maybe.
I mean, I would hope at that point since they destroyed it.
Sears too.
Yeah, for sure. What else could we go through quickly? I don't know why. Like at first I get like the whole codex thing as a way to. It's the whole thing of this movie, and you've added this lore to Superman where he has the genetic template of the rest of a planet in him, and we do jack diddly shit with that for the rest of these movies, and clearly we're
other than making him a target for Zod.
It's weird. Like, you could have just made the ship the target, man. Like, they could have had the codex, and then or they found I don't know. I don't love the codex thing. I think that's convoluted.
Well, and honestly, just the yellow sun is enough of a reason. The yellow sun and the fact that Zod is kind of like a revenge kind of guy. Like, he could be like, I'm going to specifically take out Earth because Kal-El, son of Jor-El, I have an issue with your family, and you have an attachment to Earth. Therefore, Earth is mine now. Sure. Like, that would be enough of a reason for the character to target Earth, right? Sure. Maybe you would get some people complaining that, like, Superman is arguably the one thing preventing him from setting up base. So if he could just flew to a different planet with a yellow sun, it'd be easier for him to take over. But that's not Zod's MO anyway. So
that's a how it should have ended joke. If he had just gone to Mars, they would have won. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if there are Martians there anymore. It's just there's so much in this movie that's generally weird. You could nitpick it forever. For example, Clark comes home to Ma Kent and was. It looks like loosely implied that he was hitchhiking on a truck.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just fly home?
I don't know.
Why did you have to hitchhike on a truck? Why would you do that?
Why are you walking up the long driveway? No one's around. Just drop in.
Just fly. Lois and Clark. There's no chemistry at all. There just isn't.
I don't really believe them as a romantic couple.
It's bad. I don't like it.
If we're being honest, or if we're being fair, I think it's because they don't get time to develop it. The few scenes they do have together,
her life is always in danger.
Something. Yes, but that's the problem. And like she gets to talk to him first when he's like handcuffed, but that scene isn't really for her so much as it is for everyone else in the room. Like, so they don't really get any private moments. And then all of a sudden she's like his special friend, and they like target her as a hostage.
I was gonna say, why do they take her? They probe her brain, but like, for what?
It doesn't. She doesn't really even have. Okay, she does kind of get to be like the Superman reporter in this movie because she pushes for the story before Perry will accept it, right? So she does kind of get the Superman reporter energy. But I don't feel like there's enough time for that to be such a widely known fact that Kryptonians plugged into the information network of Earth would know to target her, right? That would be like an established Lois Lane and Superman relationship. They might be able to know that because the Daily Planet would have tons of articles of Lois Lane on the byline, right?
Exactly.
But that's not the story here. Like, the story here is that Lois and Superman are both very new things, and so they don't have an established public relationship, which means the Kryptonians wouldn't know to target her. Yeah. Which is another example of how if you just stuck with the basics, you would have a better story than all this weird new stuff you're trying, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. Very little in this movie does. The fight with Zod in the end is fine, whatever. I don't like that he kills him. I know that's been talked to death the last 10 years, but I think it's just stupid, because if you want to make
it's a bad choice for a Superman film. It's a bad choice.
It's a bad choice for a Superman film to have him kill the villain. However, it's really counterproductive to have a moment where you realize, or you're told, that the symbol of the House of El, the S, the hope symbol, part of it is believing that there's good in every single person, or valuing all life, whatever. And so it hurts to kill anyone. Oh my gosh. Other people say it's Superman learning to value life by having to take one. That's pretentious as fuck. But anyway, it doesn't really matter when you go up against having to fight this madman villain who has no good in him. Right, who has said multiple times he was specifically made and engineered to fight for one thing, and that one thing is gone. So what does he have to live for one? What's going to be the thing to stop him for two? And how else would you beat him in this instance? And what are you losing if you kill him? You know, like, you've created a situation where the only thing to do is to kill him, and we lose nothing by killing him, it hurts nothing by killing him, and no one's upset by killing him, except for some reason, Clark. Why would you do this? Why would you do this?
Well, okay, in my mind, you should never end your first Superman film by having him break his like big rule. Because the whole thing with Superman's big I don't kill rule is because he's not Batman. It would be really easy for him to kill all of the people that he goes up against. He just like that's a line that he feels like he shouldn't cross because it would be so easy for him, right?
Sure.
All he has to do is intensify the eye lasers a little bit, melted skull. It's not hard. But Clark has been taught to look for that good in everybody, to not take power into his own hands like that. You know, he's drawn a line for himself so that he won't become someone who is too powerful or someone who is willing to take life like that. I think eventually, when dealing with large scale threats that will not stop, a Superman that does occasionally take life without becoming fully evil, that's an interesting character. But you can't write your first Superman story with that at the end. It doesn't work. That's too early for the character to make that kind of choice. And it's another example, for the same reasons that you just laid out, it's another example of how the life lessons learned from the Kents simply don't apply in this version of the story. Let's go ahead and assume the Kents taught him the value of life, which they didn't really in this film.
Yeah.
But we're going to go ahead and assume they did. Maybe because Clark has a value for life.
You know?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. That would be a scene where, like, Paul would be one of those, like, sort of scold, I'm proud of you moments where he's like, you really need to not do stuff like that. But also, if it weren't for you, basically our entire town wouldn't have their kids anymore.
Right.
So what you did was a good thing. But, like, this is a moment where he's been taught by somebody that there's good in everyone and that humans and people in general deserve to have a chance to be good. And the first big-time villain he encounters is someone who is genetically designed to be warmongering, so much so that he took down his own people, and he intentionally goes about causing death and destruction specifically to hurt Superman and says that there's no way to change him. You've created a no-win scenario for the Superman character where he has to kill Zod in order to have any kind of like victory in this moment.
What are you gonna do with him? You know, like what?
So he's supposed to be a hero that believes in the good in everybody, and his first hero is someone who has no good.
Yeah. Right. Like, just have the fighting take place at the same time as the plane is coming into the city and then throw him into the Phantom Zone. Done. That's all. Yeah. That's done. Or make the villain Brainiac.
The Phantom Zone might be a horrible, torturous place that Superman would hate sending people to, but he would do it for this.
Fine. You know? Yeah, it's dumb. It's just dumb. There's a lot of just dumb. Somehow Clark gets a job at the Daily Planet without a degree in anything. So, cool. Good for him.
There's so much in this movie that if they just stuck with the basics could have been really good, but instead they decided to make their own stuff up. Snyder, I guess, decided to make his own stuff up. And
this is a quick one. This is a quick nitpick. I don't love the Christian allegory parallels. I understand that some people do. I understand that Superman has been aligned with that in the past. But I think a modern Superman, to align him with any one religion, kind of undercuts how he's like, he's a superhero for all. You know what I mean? Like, so the Superman Jesus allegory thing is a little much. That's a Snyder thing. He does that with a lot of his stuff. Because for one, I don't like that he goes and talks to the priest that comes out of nowhere. Everything that he talks about and all the messaging he gets from that's Jor-El. That should have been Jor-El. We should have been talking to Jor-El, because, like, you learn of Zod, you leave, Zod shows up, why don't you go back and talk to Hologram Dad about Zod and what to do?
I actually had that note, too. I was like, why not research Zod via your dad, Jor?
Right. Like, I know I'm a godless, heathen, atheist monster, but, like, you know, Daredevil, it makes sense. Captain America, it makes sense. The Thing is Jewish, right on. Kamala Khan is a Muslim, right on. Superman, I like it when it's more acknowledgement, but not really involvement in any of them, because it's Superman. It's different.
The priest scene kind of stood out to me a little bit too. Kind of in like a small town kind of compulsory normative way, in the sense that like a lot of small town priests are just sort of like a wise man people go to advice to, regardless of whether or not they fully believe in the faith. But I agree that it stood out because Superman doesn't usually consult. He would highly respect any sort of
Sure, yeah,
man of the cloth, but he wouldn't necessarily go to them for advice. He would go to Ma or Pa or Jor-El.
Right, over those other people. It's weird.
Or Lois, even. He places a lot in his personal relationships. He values the people he's close to highly because he thinks they're good people. So he would go to them for advice before he would go to a total stranger who just is sort of given social status, right? Like it doesn't really make sense for the character. No. I also didn't get a ton of Masonic vibes from him in this film.
There's some, though. We have the ones in the church are pretty heavy-handed. They've got the stained glass stuff behind him as he's talking, and they're talking about that the big jump is a leap of faith and all that.
I mean, that happens with a lot of characters, so I didn't really consider that Clark specific.
No, it does, but it is still a deliberate choice in this instance. And then when he leaves the ship, the way he's posing, in the sun with his arms, that is a deliberate choice as well. It's not.
Did I write something about that? I feel like I did. No, it was actually in Return to Superman. There was a very much there was a move from Icarus to Christ.
No,
it was weird.
It is a consistent Superman thing, but it's not inherent in Superman, and it is it's not just Snyder that does it. It's just Snyder did it a little heavier because pretty much all Superman movies have a moment where he's flying and he looks like that. Now all of them have him sitting underneath a stained glass window of Jesus with scenes where he's flying around like that. And it's not just Superman either. They did the same thing with Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. I'm just saying, again, with the more modern take, I don't love that decision making because I think for a character like that, I think it undercuts what he represents. Bigger problem is how, again, Snyder's just in the Superman lore, is Pa Kent important? Yeah, well, cool, fuck that. In the Superman lore, is having hologram Space Dad important? Yeah, well, fuck that, we'll get rid of that too. Is having the Fortress of Solitude important typically? Yeah, usually, cool. Well, let's make it the space equivalent of an RV, and then trash it, and leave it in Metropolis. Let's just leave it there. Let's have the Fortress of Solitude for a good 15 and a half minutes. That's all great Superman stuff. That really makes sense. Also, real quick, I think it's glossed over pretty quick that Superman completely undercuts both Jor-El and Zod's desires by destroying any hope for Krypton to ever come back by embracing the idea that Krypton had its chance. That's not what Jor-El wanted. That's not typically what Superman's motivations are. Either. One of the things he keeps safe within the Fortress of Solitude, when he has a Fortress of Solitude, is Kandor, the city from Krypton that was stolen by Brainiac, because the idea of maybe preserving some of Krypton is relatively important.
Let's put it this way. I find it more believable that Superman would leave Earth and fly out to space to look at the ruins of Krypton than I would believe that Superman would happily or comfortably destroy any chance of Krypton coming back. Yeah. Would he do it to save Earth? Absolutely. Should he be making those decisions in his first film? No. Yeah. Come on! Why are we attacking Superman's character before establishing it? We haven't established Superman's character yet. Let's establish his character first, and then we can have conversations to make it nuanced.
Yeah. Yep. It's so not good. It's just it's such a it's just...
We haven't really mentioned it yet, but My Adventures with Superman is an origin story cartoon that's out right now about Superman. And I have to compare it to this. because My Adventures of Superman arguably takes as many liberties with the Superman canon as this movie did, and yet it feels like Superman in every single episode.
Very much so.
And it's just shocking to me how a person could approach this character and just think, essentially, the only way you make a film this bad about Superman is you decide that Superman is inherently boring and you're going to have to make some serious edits to him in order for him to make any kind of sense. And that just means that you haven't actually read the stories or engaged in the stories. Because, like, I've not read that many Superman comics, but I've watched a lot of cartoons and I get I get the gist about like who he is and what he is. I'm fine with the fact that he has lots of different like stories or origins or arcs that he takes that don't all fit in compatibility together in like one canon timeline. That's all fine with me because I like variation. I'm a big fan of the way the stories evolve and change over time. This is a complete misunderstanding of the character. This is a disinterest in the character. I want to count how many minutes Superman is on screen in this film, because I'll bet it's not enough for it to be actually his film.
Yeah, probably.
They spend so much time in the past. Like, I don't want to count. It's a debate. I want to have a separate section for young Clark time, because it is technically Clark, but it's not really Superman, right? So, like, if you include that time, maybe there is enough Superman on-screen time for this to be a Superman film. But ultimately, like, so much of what we get is not about him. I mean, they have like 3 fights on Krypton before we even get to him flying to Earth.
Yep.
This whole movie is so disinterested in who Kal-El, Clark Kent, and Superman are. Mm-hmm. Only interested in the Jor-El Zod conflict and then like some general Earth versus alien conflicts. And so we ignore the main character through most of the film.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a bizarre choice. And if we let this one go a little bit, because we're kind of at the end of this marathon, we are and we aren't. I understand the DCEU became a bit of a mess for reasons that aren't entirely Snyder's fault. However, it is an extremely strange choice, and I've always hated this. Again, going back to Pa Kent's motivation and message, that the idea of this kid being an alien and being stronger and resilient and durable with super senses and maybe heat vision would be so crazy that it'll change how we look at the world, just to reveal in the second movie that Wonder Woman and the Greek pantheon have existed the entire time. And the Atlanteans exist, and Cyborg exists, which means that Darkseid exists, and the Flash exists. Granted, we find out later that maybe Flash happens the day of this like main fight going on, so he's not like out and about. But still, supernatural elements exist in this world. Does Pa Kent know all about that? No, sure. But then don't pick him or this version of him to be the moral and ideological motivation and backing for this character. Because if you put them all on paper, a dude who's half robot, a guy who's an Atlantean, a dude who can move faster than light, the goddess who is the daughter of Hippolyta and Zeus, all of that is way weirder than a kid with bulletproof skin.
From another planet.
Also, I understand there's a little bit of like yada yada because we know the story of Superman. There are several logical fallacies, though, that go into Ma and Pa Kent's perspective of, yeah, this guy's an alien. You don't know that, actually. You don't know shit. You're making a lot of assumptions and then raising this boy under them and allowing him to be stressed and scared and fearful of all of your assumptions.
See, and that's what's so frustrating, because the core of Superman's character is that he was raised by a couple that knew he was special but taught him to value every life and treated him normally. Like, Superman got grounded as a kid, you know? Like, in the original version, he probably got slapped around a little bit, you know? It's like, he was not exempt from consequences. He was not treated differently. His life lesson was the exact same that he would receive from Ma and Pa if he were like a regular human boy. The only difference is that they taught him to be more responsible because of his abilities. They're like, you have to be a little bit more aware than everybody else is because of your ability to either destroy or create or protect based off what you choose to do. And they didn't really tell him that he had to be anything, but it's because of the upbringing he gets that he becomes a hero, right? There's
see this
for Ma and Pa to put pressure on Clark to be like ultra secretive to the point where he lets people die about his powers. That's not a normal upbringing. That's not the kind of upbringing that the Kents would be proud of.
Nope. And the message of this movie from the parents, from Pa Kent, and then later on extended into Batman vs Superman, where Ma Kent says, "Be whatever this world needs you to be, or be none of it. You don't owe this world a thing." And that's her message. That line from last week, Superman Returns. You wrote the world doesn't need a savior, but every day I hear people crying out for one. That's not specific to that version of Superman. That's going to apply to any of them that have super hearing, which this one does. We see it. And he's had this worldly experience. He sees people who need help.
He clearly has the impulse of heroism in him, this version of Superman, and yet it seems to have sprung out of nowhere. Are we supposed to just believe that it was random?
Inherent.
Yeah, which, like, that's kind of problematic with the whole conversation they were having around bioengineering and natural birth. Yeah, because if it's just inherent in him to be a good guy, like...
Because where are you getting it, Clark? You didn't get it from your dad. We don't get enough of your mom. You don't meet Jor-El until later.
You're not engineered to be a hero.
So where'd you get it from? Who raised you, boy? Who raised you? Because we don't fucking know. I was going to say at the beginning of this that as a Superman movie, 'tis not a whale. But as a regular movie with the action and the special effects and whatnot, 'tis maybe a whale. But the more we talk about it, no, 'tis not a whale.
Nothing in the film makes sense other than the villain's arc. And even that is questionable.
The villain doesn't have an arc, though. That's the thing. That's the issue with the villain, is he doesn't have an arc.
I don't mean character arc. I just mean, like, his motivations and his choices, given the situation that he's put in, are the only things that feel consistent to me. Everything else is just sort of like, either it happens because it's a Superman thing, or... we're doing something weird with Clark. Like the whole not being Superman past your 30s, not having the Fortress of Solitude, all of that's like weirdness that we're trying to make interesting out of Superman, which was already interesting. You're just messing it up. I don't know. It's like when someone takes a wobbly table and they're trying to make the legs even. So they saw off one of the legs, and it's more wobbly. And so they saw off more of the leg, and it's more wobbly. And they saw off another leg, and it's even more wobbly. And they're like, eventually, I will get this. And then just left with, like, wooden bits on the floor, and they called it a movie. Like, they deconstructed Superman so much that they didn't have anything left.
Yeah. The way I think of it is, at a restaurant, someone ordered a steak with green beans on the side. And the chef Snyder comes back with a cheeseburger with French fries, and it's like, this is not what I ordered. It's like, yeah, but it has meat in it, and I don't like steak. I like cheeseburgers, so here you go. It's got an S for steak because it's still the same animal, so it's the same thing, right? No, it's not. So yeah, at the moment, since we've not seen the new Superman movie, I would argue there's really only one good Superman movie, because I don't like most of Superman 2, even though most people do. Superman 3 sucks. Superman 4 is awful. Superman Returns is not that good, really, at the end of the day. There's things to like about it, but it's similar to this one in other ways. Like, it's Superman more, but the movie itself is a mess, and the villain is boring. I'd rather watch Superman Returns than this, but...
I think there's kind of like 3 buckets. I think the first one is good. I have, like,
good, bad, fine
tags on it. There, like, first one is good. I think it's a little bit low in that category, but it does fit in the good category. I think the second one and Superman Returns are in the fine category for me. They, like, that doesn't suck. It's weird. It's not great. there's enough interesting things happening in it that I'm like invested, but at the same time, like there are some problems that just don't really work out. The rest of them are in the bad bucket. And this one I think is solidly in the bad bucket. Because like the thing with the second one and with Superman Returns is that even though they do make questionable character choices for Superman and the other characters, at the end of the day, it still feels like a Superman movie. The rest of them, like the third and the fourth Superman films, they do kind of feel like a Superman movie, but they're just like really bad. And Man of Steel is so disinterested in the character of Superman that it doesn't feel like a Superman movie. I feel like I'm watching a movie with Superman in it instead of a Superman movie, which is really bad.
It's a movie with barely Superman in it. If anything, it's like Omni-Man day one. Like he's a little Omni-Man.
Yeah.
It's a problem, and it doesn't get better. We're not gonna watch Batman versus Superman or Justice League or the Snyder Cut of Justice League or the post-credit scene of Black Adam or whatever. But it doesn't get better, shall we say? It just doesn't. This interpretation of Superman was not a good one, objectively speaking, I think. And it's a waste of Cavill, and it's bizarre in so many ways.
This could be makeup and editing more than anything, but I will say, and maybe it's just the effect of having watched a bunch of different men play Superman now, Cavill's actually not my favorite cast. He's good at it, and he would have been a good Superman given good writing. But I actually feel like he's a little bit too photo perfect. Like, he's too sharp a lot of the time.
I get that. In general, I still like it quite a bit. I don't like what they do with him later. They slick his hair back so much in Batman vs. Superman. It's honestly strange. This one I think is fine. It's not Superman I have an issue with. It's Clark. Like, not Clark the boy, or not even the child, Clark Kent the farm boy. It's Clark the Metropolis
the reporter,
Daily Planet employee. He's too hot. They changed nothing about his look. They just put glasses on his big
Lois recognizes him on sight.
Lois knows who it is. Like, yeah, it's just well, that's the other thing that's weird. I assumed Lois was going to be the one to help him get the job. She clearly isn't. So how the hell did you manage that? How did you get that job? Doesn't matter. We're not going to explore it, because the things that make Superman, like his parents, his friends, his job, his connection to his past through the Forces of Solitude, his dog, his cousin, none of that is present. None of that's going to matter. None of that is worth exploring. Is Jimmy Olsen in this? No. Is he in the next one? Technically. Is he in it for long? No. They kill him off immediately. He's the first person to die. I
forgot about that.
That's Jimmy Olsen. That guy that it looks way too cool to be Jimmy Olsen, who is killed by these weird warlords. That's Jimmy Olsen. And you know why? Snyder said in his universe, there was no place for Jimmy Olsen. Tell me you don't understand Jack Diddley shit about Superman comics without telling me you don't understand Jack Diddley shit about Superman comics.
And like, that's another example of why I feel like My Adventures of Superman makes as many different choices as this movie did, and yet understands him fundamentally way better, because like the origin of how he interacts with Krypton is completely different than anything I've ever seen in My Adventures of Superman. And yet it makes his motivation to be Superman and to be who he is stronger. It improves a little bit of the character, or not necessarily improves, but strengthens the whole hero bit in him. It emphasizes his choices. It emphasizes the character of like who he is personality wise, and his morals and his ethics. And a part of the reason why we love him and why he feels so adorable and cute is his relationship with Jimmy. Jimmy has been a long-term best friend. They roomed together in this, younger version of the characters. Yeah. And honestly, it's my favorite version of Jimmy, because Jimmy has always felt a little goofy, sidekick goofy, kind of unnecessary in a lot of versions. And in this version, he gets to be goofy, but he's also really, really important to Clark because of their relationship. Yep. And it works really, really well.
Yeah.
That's making changes out of an understanding for the character, making changes that improve the way that the character reads in his story and his situation.
Changes that feel like we're moving forward and not somehow backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's our time. We're past our time, but it was worth it. We had to talk about it. So I really hope the new one is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
That's us for now. Okay. Bye all.
Bye.